Hello team, haven't done one of these for a while, so I literally am in the process of trying to get through to the hospital to talk to them about or I'm waiting for them to call me about my mum, who's been very ill, nearly died. So I thought I'd take this opportunity just to both give you an update, but also to get into the really murky areas of mental health, especially as we're heading and hurtling towards Christmas. Christ, what are we, December 14th? That's the engine coming on, by the way. So just to say, obviously there was a flurry of content around mental health issues. I was using this space or this forum as an opportunity to kind of share in a sort of almost 12-step recovery sort of way. If I was to go to a meeting at that point, what would I have opened my mouth and talked about, in the hope and in the thought and in the spirit that perhaps it would connect with people and someone might gain something from it, you know, always looking for the similarities rather than looking for the differences. There's always the sense and there's always the feeling that when one does these things, it's like one's having a moan, and in a weird way we are having a moan, like we have a moan on Coffee Moaning, but it's a kind of opening up of mental state in order to potentially be of use to someone. For me, it's part of the 12-step fellowship of being of service. It then stays on the channel. It's not a kind of temporary transitory thing where you go to a meeting. Sometimes I've been to meetings and Nadia will be like, oh, what did they say? And I'm like, oh God, I can't quite put it how they put it because they put it so well. And, you miss things, whereas this is an opportunity just to share in feelings. Christmas is a really triggering time for so many very different reasons, for so many different people in different ways. It's a time where everyone feels the pressure to be perfect, everyone feels the pressure of finances, everyone feels the pressure of relationships needing to be better, or relationships that aren't good are put under extraordinary extra strain, as everyone is under some duress really to have the best time of their lives or to have a breather. There's almost a sense of, even if you manage to stop at Christmas, you need to stop properly. What does stopping look like for some people? We eat too much. If you're a drinker, we drink too much. If you're not a drinker, you're surrounded by people drinking an awful lot. If you have eating issues like I do, you're surrounded by tasty morsels and fabulous family cooks who are making stuff that you just want to humph. And, there's that thing called Nutella, which just kind of is like a throbbing, pulsing heart in the corner of the larder. So there are lots of temptations, there are lots of pressures, there are lots of traps, there's lots of room and scope for misunderstanding. I mean, me and Nads are going through a lot individually and collectively. Now, I don't want to speak ever on Nadia's behalf. She's going through a really torrid, difficult, well, I mean, as she would herself say, she's not going through it, but she's experiencing the emotions that go with a dear, dear friend of hers and ours, going through some really difficult, going through the most difficult hospice care after an extraordinarily long, brave, articulate, savvy, empowered battle with cancer. And she, Nadia's friend Hannah, is absolutely got her back against the wall and is just, bless her, we just all need to send all our love. But of course it's heartbreaking for Hannah, it's heartbreaking for her family, and it's heartbreaking for those who are closest to Hannah, and especially those like Nadia and Tits and Kaz. For those of you who know the channel, they're collectively they're all called the Fab Four. Their friendship group is experiencing, you can only describe as an emotional tsunami. So that's hugely pressuring. That's something that one needs to be forever aware of. It kind of takes the shine out of everything that I can see Nadia would like to enjoy more or wants to enjoy more. It doesn't mean she doesn't. She's very good at being able to compartmentalize things and take things and have gratitude for certain things. And then, of course, I see her get hijacked. In the same spirit, as I said, I'm not going to talk too much about that. That's her emotional story and Hannah's emotional story to talk about. But that obviously we lost our dog earlier this year. We have a new addition to the family, Pepper, who's bringing huge comfort and joy and laughter and pleasure. Something, again, I hope you're enjoying us sharing on the rest of the channel. But of course, my major concern and my major worry and the major sort of question mark again, and it was there 3-4 months ago or so, is my mother, or as many of you on the channel know, Nanny Di. And again, my circumstances, the circumstances I'm going through with my mum, are in no way unique. They're no way, I'm not going through anything that any of you guys won't have gone through, but everyone who goes through everything goes through it their way. And perhaps in going through things their way, in sharing how it's affecting them, there may be something in that to help other people going through exactly the same thing. And you know, the issue with my mum, bless her, she's in hospital at the moment. She had said after her last episode where she'd had a fall, she went into hospital, she was in hospital for a week, nearly 9 days. A care package was put in place once she came out. That care package, a wonderful team of carers who I've got to know a little bit, and you know, they've put my mum first, even when she's been a bit crabby, even when she's done that classic kind of, you know, frail older person sort of, you know, a bit cross and a bit morose and a bit this and that and the other. You know, they see past that, and they see that she is an incredibly eccentric, charismatic character. On our series Vlogmas, which we put up on the channel, you'll have seen my mum asked to be filmed for one of those, where we had a little kind of natter at her flat, a chuckle. We connected again on film and art and literature, which is really where we managed to build a friendship of sorts. It's not been an easy relationship, mine and my mum's, throughout the years. It's been an only child and a single parent relationship, though when I say single parent, she has pretty much most of my childhood always was in a relationship, or my mum would agree with this, relationships, which presented its own issues. And we've talked at length about how childhood trauma, all contributes to mental health issues, can contribute to an approach to alcohol, a need to kind of numb one's feelings, all this sort of stuff. So this isn't another opportunity. I don't feel the need today to relive or retread through all of that sort of stuff. It's, you know, I understand where a lot of my issues have come from, but there comes a point, and I think this is a really important thing to talk about, where regardless of the, if you want to say, culpability of a parent, an elderly parent, their responsibility for, obviously I'm not talking about the most egregious acts of direct abuse or you know, or behavior or predatory behavior. I'm not talking about stuff that's criminal or that has completely you know, physically, emotionally traumatized someone, and you know, they've almost, you know, in that sense, you know, I'm talking about child abuse or physical abuse or things like that. But I think there is a really murky line between a good parenting, or a parent that's being a parent, and moments in that parent's parenting that overreach. Or, so for example, in my mum's story, you know, I know for a fact that her temper, her fury, her frustrations, whatever was going on for her and her mental health story, you know, erupted and bled into certainly my childhood and my adult life a great many times. But putting all of that to the side, where are we right now? I have an elderly mum who, rightly or wrongly, however I've forged that connection and that loving relationship with her, I've talked before on here, I kind of have got to this curious place that some would say, well, it shouldn't have got like that, but it did, and it got like that at quite a young age, where I was kind of parenting my mum. And as we go into this stage where actually, of my 4 daughters, and let's call my mum my 5th daughter, how weird is that? She's the least capable, the least self-sufficient, the least physically or mentally or emotionally healthy at the moment of all of them. She's the most vulnerable in the most literal sense of all of them. And yet she's made a huge number of choices that have got her to this place. And I'm not talking about choices around parenting, I'm just talking about choices she's made in her life. The choices of an addict, the choices of someone who, for whatever reasons, didn't want to share their life with someone close to them, or didn't want to keep friendships with friends who wanted to stay in contact with her, you know, for whatever reasons, whatever the causes of that were, whether it be, I mean, my mum herself, and none of this is me saying stuff that she hasn't said or wouldn't say herself. She has said that perhaps she has been lazy emotionally and lazy in terms of relationships, and she's just kind of reacted to things rather than thought about things and nurtured things. And so I'm looking at a woman who I care for immeasurably. I love disproportionately to what I think some people would say one should love her, because I do love her, and I'm worried about her, and she's in a bed in the best place she could be right now. There's her flat, which I was once again in when I discovered she'd gone back into hospital because she dropped her mobile phone in her cup of tea. And weirdly, the people that she presses the alarm for hadn't contacted me to tell me she'd gone. So I arrived at her flat and she wasn't there. The shock of that is so shocking. And even having had this sort of test run or dummy run earlier in the year, you'll have seen that I did a mental health chat where I was in my mum's flat, it was empty, NHS kit was arriving. I was thinking, what the fuck is next? This is weird. This is like a dress rehearsal for when she's not here. And it was all of those things. And then I find my mum again in hospital, 5 days ago. And she's talking to me about how she's got this abscess. We've talked about that. It's an internal abscess. It's protuberant, so it's noticeable. There's confusion and there's concern. And as my mum said, well, he was very grave about a non-resuscitation order. And I'm thinking, but I just wanted to share with you guys, and this isn't, again, the fault of the doctors or the hospital, but trying to get clear information on my mum has been nigh on impossible ever since she was going in for her brain scans. And I mean, they've not been able to diagnose whatever has been responsible for my mum's demise. My hunch is that it has been the systematic abuse of prescription meds and painkillers over the years have just simply compromised bone, blood, general health, vitality, probably her digestive system, her gut. And so an abscess has occurred, and it's a sizable abscess. And as in terms of where we're at right now, they don't quite know what they're going to do in order, or how they're going to go about, I guess, draining it. She doesn't know. They don't know what the potential, related issues could be from something like this. And so she's in a bed. She's in a hospital, and she's just sat there. And the unknowability of it all. I mean, has anyone else gone through this level of just not having a diagnosis, not having clarity? The possibility even of them saying things like, I mean, one of the staff members said to me the other day when I was there, we need to get, the doctor will need to get hold of you to discuss next measures. What does that mean, next measures? I said, what do you mean? Like how she goes home, if she goes into a care home, whether the care package she's got is enough? Because ostensibly she's at home, she's refused a hospital bed at home. Even though me, the physiotherapist, her social care worker have all insisted, she's like, no. What do you do with someone who's insisting no? At what point do you overreach? At the point that they, to quote my nanny Thelma, is it at the point that they're gaga and they're going goo and they don't know their ass from their elbow? Is it at that point? So it's the unknowability and going into Christmas. And for me, Christmas for me with my mum is a weird one, because from the day dot, from as tiny as I remember Christmas, I was always dropped at my nan's. My mum wasn't there in the run up to Christmas, and there was always a bit of drama about whether she would get there. And I've had that. It's interesting, Nadia and the girls have noticed how that similar drama has been there over the years when she's come to us. Like, she'd be with us, she'd come to us, but she'd kind of want to go almost within minutes. Or if not go, she'd like being there, but she was only thinking about leaving. And so the feeling was not one of her being present and kind of able to bed in and just, do nothing and hang out, but one of, planning for her departure. So I've only ever really planned for my mum in my heart. I've only ever thought of Christmas as, when is my mum coming? And when is she going to try and get away from here? And she would leave my nan's and I would stay at my nan's for longer. And it's weird that this is happening at Christmas. Because normally, when I'm shooting Vlogmas and stuff like that, I would be catering for at least 2 or 3 shoot days where I would involve Nanny Di in it. We would go to a garden centre, we'd go to Liberties, or we went back to Blenheim Crescent where I grew up. That isn't there. And in a weird way, on the one hand, there's a freedom to that because I'm not having to rebook in case she's not feeling well enough. But at the same time, there's oh my God, where is she going to be at Christmas Day? What's going to happen on Christmas Day? Is there are we going to just get her out for the sake of it? We don't have the medical setup and the framework, nor the care team availability, or the kit. and I don't want to go into the personal body functional reasons for that can cater for my mum at our place anymore. We just don't have them. You know, she has it within her flat when her care team are there. But I think most things are pointing definitely and definitively towards some kind of care home situation if she comes out of hospital. But at this point, I don't know if they're going to phone me and tell me it's something worse than an abscess, or it's an abscess that's going to potentially run to sepsis. And so where does all this relate to? How does all this relate to mental health? Well, it's just, what is it about this time of year? I mean, Nadia lost someone very close to her many years ago on Christmas Day. We had our beautiful baby girl, Maddie, was born on Christmas Day. We feel like something very dramatic is going to happen not too far from now. You know, Nadia's friend. My mum, she hasn't been given a sort of awful diagnosis, but there's huge question marks over my mum's health and what next, and where do we go from here. So that sense of pressure and that sense of fear and that worry and that inability. Nadia is more successful at being able to park things to the side for a moment to enjoy something. I can't do anything without all of the fears of I have cumulative thinking. So if I have 1,000,001 fears coming into that day, they all expand and they all layer over each other, and they all become this great big blob of increasing concern, so that something that should be small, a technical detail in the day later in the day, becomes massive because I'm adding it to that. Do you remember those rubber balls you get, which were made of kind of rubber bands that get bigger and bigger and bigger? It's like that. It's like that. And so behind the scenes, behind the frivolity, behind the fun, behind all the fizzy silliness and all that kind of stuff, there are just huge worries, huge concerns, huge fears. And at the same time, you're still thinking, oh, we want it to be Christmassy for the girls. They're grown up, that's fine. But I'd be lying if I didn't say there's nothing magical happening at the moment. I don't feel sad even about that. It's just pragmatism. I suppose one way of getting through this is Christmas is just this, obviously not if you're religious, but Christmas is this artificially capitalist construct of everyone go mad at this one point, whereas actually maybe we could take a little bit more time for ourselves and with each other across the year. I don't know. Anyway, that's what I would be sharing in an AA meeting or a Al-Anon meeting. I hope some of that resonates for you guys.